All right, one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here for your ride in on this Tuesday morning. Take a quick peek here, 1 second. All right, as we wait for my traffic to load, let's actually take a look at the weather really quick. It is going to be 79 degrees a high today here in downtown Columbia, currently sitting at about 62 degrees today. Going to be plenty of sunshine over the course of the next couple of days as we make our way through the week here in Columbia. And now finally going to get the traffic up and taking a look, and everything looking relatively okay around town as of right now. I do have one accident to report that at I-20 eastbound right there at Broad River Road. Other than that, everything looking okay. This traffic and weather, what's on our traffic center here on the game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on The Game. If you're watching on The Game TV, you're in for a treat because in studio, Jack Belcher is indeed wearing my throwback Matt Ryan Atlanta Falcons jersey because last night my Atlanta Falcons did defeat his Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football 24-14. Jack, I won't lie to you. I was as surprised as you probably were. I didn't see it coming.
First off, I hope you guys are enjoying this black Matt Ryan jersey. This thing is tight, man. Is this like a kid's XL?
So here's my trick when it comes to wearing or buying jerseys. It is a kid's XL.
Okay.
Because jerseys run big. So
They do.
I typically wear an adult medium, right?
Yes.
So when I buy adult mediums, they are massive on me. So I always buy like a kid's XL because I feel like that's a little bit more fitting and it doesn't like engulf me quite the same way. So that might be a little bit tight on you. I do apologize.
No,
it's the biggest one I had.
It's a snug fit. You know, Jen was saying it makes me look stronger. So I'll take that for what it is.
There you go.
But dude, what a horrific game last night. I mean, as soon as the Bills blocked that field goal in the fourth quarter, I'm like, all right, here we go. We got like 8 minutes left. We're going to go down. We're going to score. We're going to tie this game. And then we're going to go on and find a way to win it. And then you run a sweep on 3rd and 1. Or what was it, the jet sweep?
It was a jet sweep, and Allen kind of handed it off high and couldn't get a hold of the ball and ended up dropping it.
Like, all right, so if the plays execute correctly, they probably get a first down. But let me argue against running that play entirely. Why are we getting cute on 3rd and 1? Why not just you have your what is Josh, like 6'5", 250-pound quarterback?
He's worth 2 yards himself.
Why can't you just you did it in the playoffs last year?
Yeah.
Every single 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. Just run him up the middle, get the first down, extend the drive. So I'm not happy with Joe Brady's play calling last night. I have a lot of issues with it, but credit to the Falcons, though. When they got the ball back right afterwards, after the punt, they chewed off about 6 minutes of clock and got it down to about a minute with the Bills having to, be down by 10. So, I mean, look, the Falcons just played better last night, plain and simple.
I won't lie to you. When the Drake London touchdown before halftime got overturned because his foot touched down out of bounds at like the 2 or 3 yard line, which prevented it from being a 28-7 lead at halftime and ended up only being 21-7. And then the Bills scored that other touchdown in the second half. I thought, and then they blocked the field goal. I thought, okay, this is where it turns. This is where they blow the lead. This is where the Bills end up winning this game 24-21 or something like that. Thankfully, that didn't happen, but because the offense was sputtering out of the gate a little bit to start the second half for the Falcons, and I thought, oh, man, here they go again. They're going to blow another double-digit lead to an AFC East team, and thankfully that didn't happen. Which, by the way, watching that game last night, and Bijan Robinson is a monster.
He's so good.
If you haven't watched enough of him so far, you saw that on display last night. How did this team get shut out 30-0 and not run a single play in the red zone against the Panthers a couple weeks ago?
I'll tell you, man, it's a long season. Things can change. I could say the same thing about the Bills, that they don't look like the team that was undefeated to start the season and just beating everyone. They look very much not like a good team right now. And credit to the Falcons defense, though. They have made substantial improvement defensively. This is a very, in the NFC South, a division that, we think the Bucs are probably the favorites in the win, obviously. But, I mean, look, the Falcons are right there. Panthers are not far behind them either. And then, oh, boy, the Saints. But, the Falcons are looking pretty good right now, I would say.
I'm trying to find the stat from last night. Yeah, the Falcons are the number one in the NFL in total defense and number 2 in total offense. That's unbelievable. And by the way, I'm still getting used to them having a competent pass rush because they haven't had it in over a decade. But like Josh Allen was under duress all night last night.
I mean, the way he's been playing these last 2 weeks, it's just looked a lot more like backyard football where he's just running for his life. It kind of looks like someone here in Columbia that has to also run for his life a lot. So
I say there's a lot of similarities. It looks like
the Bills have a lot of issues, and it is what it is. Hopefully they get it fixed sooner rather than later because hasn't looked good these last 2 weeks. And man, I know I tweeted about it last night. It has been awful for my sports teams the last week.
You've had a rough go these last few days.
The New York Islanders are 0-3 to start the season in the NHL. The Yankees lost in the ALDS, and the Bills are 0-2 in the last week. So it's been rough, man.
You could be a Philly sports fan.
That's what I said.
The Eagles lost twice in 5 days. The Phillies got eliminated from the ALDS. And then if you were a Penn State fan too, you saw your coach that took your team to the college football playoff semifinals last year get fired 2 weeks after being in the top 10.
Yeah. You could also be a 76ers and Flyers fan, too.
You could,
so
yeah.
It doesn't get much better.
It's one of those classic situations like when your parents told you, hey, somebody's always got it worse off than you. I think Philly/Penn State sports fans have it worse off right now.
All right, man. Let's cue the sandstorm. I need some positivity, man.
Get a little bit of positivity in here before we transition back to what was a rough Saturday night in Baton Rouge.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9. All right, let's get back into it. We talked about it all day yesterday. Carolina loses 20-10 to LSU on Saturday night in Baton Rouge to fall to 3-3 on the season. We'll get into the specifics of 3-3 in a moment. But now that you've had an extra day to marinate on it, obviously you did all your travel over the weekend, so maybe you hadn't sat down and clearly thought about this game a lot since then. Where are we at with this? And do we feel any different a day later now that we're 72 hours removed from it, I guess?
No, same way. It's same problems the problems have not gone away in the last 24 hours since we talked about it, unfortunately. So it's one of these things where, you have a 6-game sample size of what you are, and we know what South Carolina is. They are a mistake-driven team. And it's funny. I was home yesterday in Fort Mill. I was talking with my dad, who, keep in mind, he does not watch every single South Carolina game.
Sure.
But he had the game on the other day, and he could just tell you all the problems. Like, this is a guy that does not watch all these games like everyone else does. And he immediately identified all the problems. He's like, they are so undisciplined. They had so many penalties in that game. The blocking up front is terrible for Lenore Sellers. And even Sellers' decision-making was awful on Saturday. Like, that's all coming from my father, who could care less about watching South Carolina. But here he is watching and just seeing all the mistakes right away. So, there's real problems out there.
Yeah, and we didn't really get into Sellers' individual performance on Saturday, and there was a lot of design runs for him. He didn't have a ton of space to work with in the run game. It was nice to see that they were just specifically trying to put the ball in his hands, which was a common complaint earlier on in the season. And when you're under that much duress, you're going to put more of the blame on the offensive line. But you're right, some of his decision-making wasn't all that great. It was not an all-around great game for Lenore Sellers. by any means. And, we kind of thought what we'd seen the last 2 weeks before the bye with his passing performance against Missouri and his running performance against Kentucky was hopefully him kind of hitting in strides in those areas, and unfortunately it didn't translate over to Saturday night.
It didn't. I mean, I don't know what to make of Lenoris at this point. Is it fair to say he has not had a complete performance so far this year?
It's absolutely fair to say. He's not put it all together on both facets of the game, which we saw him do on a week-in, week-out basis, especially down the stretch last year, which is why he garnered so much attention going into this year. But no, we haven't seen it this year.
And is it the play calling? Is it the blocking up front? Is it just him? Or is he not as good as we thought? Is it the sophomore slump? There's so many other factors that we have to consider here with what is going on with Lenoris that, maybe it's just a combination of everything, because it really is just not. And it's not like he hasn't been downright terrible to where it's like no one's had to say, and I don't think anyone will say this season, let's give another guy a shot.
Yeah, no, we're a long way from that.
Those conversations have not come up. Now, to be fair, I don't think you want to put the next guy in because it's going to be Luke Doty, and no disrespect to Luke, but you're not putting him in. You're not benching Sellers for him. But I think, for South Carolina to have success, Lenoris has got to be better. And again, some of the decision-making was totally on him, but I will also give him the benefit of the doubt that the blocking just was not good. There are a lot of times in that game where it's like you get 2-3 seconds of blocking, and that's just not enough. Guys up front have got to be able to hold their blocks. And I got some bad news, man. Oklahoma, they're going to be coming in here pissed off, and they are a good defense. I think everyone forgets that game last year where Carolina had the 9 sacks against Oklahoma. OU had 6 sacks in that game.
Yeah.
So Sellers might be in for a rough weekend if that blocking cannot figure it out.
Yeah, that's a nasty pass rush for sure. And I was trying to remember because Saturday he had the couple of intentional groundings that obviously hurt South Carolina in a couple different situations. I can't remember which games it was, but it was 1 or 2 games last year where he had a problem with intentional groundings too, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is like not a new issue for Lenoris Sellers that unfortunately reared its ugly head once again on Saturday night. And those essentially are just as bad as sacks, right? Because you're losing the yardage, you're losing the down, and there were several times when Carolina was in, LSU territory where you're backing up another 8-10 yards or whatever because of those intentional groundings. So yeah, all around just rough performance. And I'm interested today because of course Coach Beamer speaking today at 1:00 as he does every Tuesday during the season. What does he have to say? Right? And look, you already made the move. You fired Lonnie Teasley, Sean Elliott taking over as the offensive line coach. And, it was only a couple weeks ago that, Beamer was saying about the offense, well, other teams have, not played the best competition, and that's why maybe we're at the bottom of the SEC because we played tougher teams and, something to that effect. Well, the numbers hadn't really changed. You're still at the very bottom of the SEC in pretty much every single statistical category. Like, what do you say now that we're 6 games in and we have half a season in?
We do have actually an answer on that because I asked Beamer that very question the other day. And he just said, because I asked him after the Vanderbilt game about the stats, and he said, he didn't put a lot of stock into stats and stuff, and that they'll eventually even out and stuff. Well, like you said, Tyler, they have not really gotten much better. You're still at the bottom of the SEC in almost every single offensive category for stats. And I think the thing that he said is that some of the stats are very alarming.
Yeah,
so
I would say so.
But the thing is that he also mentioned, it's tough to make wholesale changes to the offense right now. Yes, you got rid of Lonnie Teasley, so hopefully that will spark some change on the offensive line. But as far as what you have with the offense, the playmakers, the play calling, I don't see that changing. And
well, we talked about yesterday. You don't have anybody on your staff that has called plays before, right? Outside of maybe Sean Elliott, but he's got his hands full.
And how often are you going to get a Jerry Neuheisel situation at UCLA where you just magically stumble upon? I know people want that type of situation here at Carolina, but
there's a reason it's a story because it's very much an anomaly.
Yeah. So you're sticking with Shula for right now, and we'll see what that leads to. But something's got to change here.
Well, just like last year, Carolina is 3-3 to start the year. What are the similarities and differences between this year's 3-3 and last year's 3-3? We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday here on The Game.
When it comes to HVAC replacements, AAA Heating and Air is the go-to name in the Midlands. With guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty, it's no wonder they're the best in the business. But wait, there's so much more. Did you know AAA Heating and Air also offers incredible deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're worried about the cost, they've got you covered. AAA offers up to 12-month payment plans with no credit check for all repairs. Yep. That's right. Homeowners just need a valid bank account and you're all set. So don't sweat it. Give AAA Heating and Air a call today. That number is 803-677-1500. Again, 803-677-1500. You can tell them that you heard about them on 107.5 today. Take advantage of these amazing deals. Your comfort is just a call away.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher with you here on your Tuesday on the game as we kind of put a bow on an ugly Saturday night in Baton Rouge and start looking back on the first 6 games of the year as Carolina once again finds themselves 3-3 on the season, just like they were a year ago. And, of course, they reeled off 6 straight wins to put themselves at 9-3 and at least in the conversation for the college football playoff. And we'd love that to be the case this year. Don't know if that's going to happen, but there's always hope, right? Here is Coach Beamer on Saturday night after the loss to LSU talking about being 3-3?
No, I think you can take it from it. Unfortunately, we were 3-3 at this time last year, and we were on the road at Alabama and lost a heartbreaker that came down to a 2-point conversion and a throw to the end zone at the end of the game. And I walked out of that, walked off that field sick to my stomach because we had just lost the game, and told our players in the locker room that I hurt for them because, you know, of how much they put into it. And these guys tonight, I mean, they were so freaking awesome tonight, our players, just the effort they played with. And we expected to win this game. I mean, we did, and had our opportunities too. So you draw on last year that we were 3-3, and we rallied and continued to get better. And this team, I know it's not pretty right now, but I feel like we're getting better in a lot of areas. And you know, we were 3-3 and going to Oklahoma, I think, if I remember correctly. Now we're 3-3, and we got, you know, Oklahoma coming to town. So there's things you can take from it, Jordan, but certainly we need to be able to, you know, like I told our team in the locker room, quit kicking our own butts. And before we start, you know, kicking other teams' butts. And there was too much of that tonight, just some of the, you know, going backwards when we're in scoring position and have a chance to really take control of the game. And that's the disappointing thing, is we had opportunities tonight to really, you know, I don't want to say necessarily take control, but really take momentum and dominate the fourth quarter like we talk about, and we didn't get it done.
So he's right. Last year you were 3-3 and went on the road to Oklahoma, and again you jumped on them quickly in those first 5 minutes, and that kind of sparked, you know, that stretch run you had at the back half of the year for what ended up being a really good season. You know, you're 3-3 once again, and now playing host to Oklahoma this upcoming weekend, and we'll see how that goes. But I do think it's interesting because I went back and kind of went over the first 6 games last year, and there's a lot of very interesting similarities between last year's 3-3 and this year's 3-3. So last year you had a very ugly non-Power 4 win over Old Dominion in week number 1. This year you had a pretty ugly non-Power 4 win over SC State in week number 2. You had a convincing win against Kentucky last year. You had a pretty convincing win against Kentucky this year. You had a poor L off of a bye against Ole Miss. You had a poor L off of a bye against LSU this past weekend. You had a loss where Sellers missed a half. Last year that was against LSU. This year that was against Vanderbilt. And he had 2 games in SEC play where you're in position to win late and weren't able to get it done. Last year that was LSU and Alabama. This year obviously that was in Missouri and LSU this past weekend. So really it's almost kind of a direct comparison year to year. My question is, why does this year feel different? Why do I feel less optimistic about this 3-3 than I think we were a year ago at 3-3?
I'm trying to think. I mean, the offense hasn't given you any reason to feel like they're going to get it going. But then again, and honestly, you know, I would say it's similar to last year with the offense, because I don't think the offense had fully broken through yet. And I mean, they really didn't heat up until that final month of the season. Like from the, you know, the first week of November onward, they were really clicking on offense. We just have not seen that yet with the Mike Shula-led offense here. And I think the other thing about it is it's different compared to Dow Loggins because, you know, you weren't last in the SEC in terms of being, you know, as an offense, right? Like, there's just been nothing really super positive. Now, the run game's better. That's a good sign for maybe things can turn around. Again, I think all it really does take is one game for all that momentum to just swing the other way. Like, if South Carolina just goes out here this weekend and drops 30 points on Oklahoma on offense, that changes the entire perception of things moving forward and gives you a lot of juice heading into the next final 5 games of the year. Your defense is still relatively good. That's another bright spot. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, it just has not come together. And I think there's so many other external factors. The penalties, the missed tackles were a problem for such a long time. I mean, things like that are just holding South Carolina back to where, again, we saw it in the Kentucky game. When you limit those little mistakes that can always come back to bite you, you're going to play a good football game. So
yeah, and I think the offense is probably the big key here because last year they hadn't rounded into form yet through the first 6 games, and that was a part of the reason why they had lost 3 of those. But you saw a lot of things that gave you reason to be hopeful, right? Like you saw the spurts of Lenore Sellers and his ability. He obviously scored 33 points against LSU, which certainly helped out. In that game, you had the ability down or late in that game against Alabama, where you almost won the game. Sans the 2-point conversion there. So you saw things that gave you a lot of promise and hope that it was going to click in that second half of the season, which it ended up doing. And again, you scored 44 points against A&M. You scored in the 30s against Missouri. You had some pretty high scoring outputs down the stretch there, and I just don't think we've seen enough out of this offense this year through 6 games to give me belief that, quite frankly, they're going to score more than 21 points against anybody this year.
No,
let alone the next 4 opponents that are all ranked and with really good defenses.
That's the thing. Like the schedule only gets tougher from here, and you did not help yourself early on in the season getting off to what has been a common trend for Shane Beamer-led teams, getting off to a slow start in the first month of the year. Now, the only thing I could say is typically, historically speaking, South Carolina does play better as the season goes on. Again, there are the similarities with the record from last year compared to this year, but there's so many other problems that make it feel like, like you've always been that good team in November, but what gives you the confidence that they're going to be once again, especially when you have your first 2 games of the month on the road? I mean, you're going to play 2 top 5 teams in the country in November. And that's why I think these next 2 weeks are so important, because if you want to get to a bowl game, in my mind, Tyler, I think you have to be able to find a way to at least split these games with Oklahoma and Alabama, which is no easy task.
Yeah, because look, you should be able to beat Coastal. I think that you feel okay in saying that, though. Coastal's not a slouch by any means. So there's what we think is going to be a 4th win there. So, all right, between Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M, and Clemson, you got to find 2 more wins in there. And look, this year in college football is so topsy-turvy. I don't doubt your ability to win one of those games, and I don't know what Clemson's going to be by the time that game gets here at the end of the year. So it's a rivalry game. That's a toss-up at this point with how both teams have a look so far. Can you find a way to win these games against one of these ranked teams that nobody's going to give you a chance in? That's the biggest question. I don't know what game that is. Maybe it is Oklahoma because they're coming in off of a loss, and John Mateer is still not back to 100%. I don't know. Maybe Alabama, coming off of an emotional rivalry game against Tennessee this weekend, is going to be coming in, not prepared for you. I don't know what it is, but you're going to have to probably catch one of these teams on a bad day, in my opinion.
Which, honestly, this might be the weekend to do it, because Mateer is not 100%. They're obviously coming off the loss to Texas, and I'm referring to Oklahoma, by the way. But I think you got Oklahoma in a tough spot here. And, yes, that defense is really good. And, yes, Mateer's a good quarterback. But, they were kind of exposed this past weekend. So I think South Carolina's getting them at a good time, and Alabama's playing really good right now. I would find it hard to believe that they go completely winless in this 5-game stretch. I mean,
I don't think they're going to go winless.
But if they did, I mean, you're not going to a bowl game. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and again, we have readjusted our expectations now that we've seen what this team is, where now your goal is to win 3 more games and play somewhere in the month of December, probably before Christmas, which, again, my line for good bowl game versus bad bowl game is if you're playing before Christmas, it's usually not good because you're in Birmingham or Tampa for the Gasparilla Bowl or something along those lines. But still, it's better than not having a bowl game and, not having the extra weeks. Because, again, bowl games are essentially your start on next season, right? It's like an extension of spring practice. You get 15 practices. You get an extra game. You can start figuring out what you have for next year. Like, there's value in that in today's age of college football that you'd like to have.
In my mind, if you don't go to a bowl game this year, that brings up some really tough discussions at the end of the year. Again, I don't think Beamer is going anywhere, but just keep in mind, Jeremiah Donati was not the one that hired him, so things could always change after the season, assuming if you don't go to a bowl game.
And look, I think last year was strong enough at 9-3 and being in the top 15 where I'm not worried about Beamer's job security at this point in time. Now, again, if this year's bad, next year's a disaster, that's a different story. But he's your coach. I don't have any doubt about that going forward. You just hope that you can salvage something this season.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. We'll get into other things happening around the college football world we didn't get a time to yesterday, including one of your next opponents and what they did on the road at Missouri. That's coming up next. It is The Extra Point. It's Ed and Jack Beltry along with you on your Tuesday here on The Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. I tell you about it all the time. The month of October is truly the best one of the entire sports year. Do you know we have football on every single day from now through, I believe, the day before Thanksgiving? Yeah, that much football for basically the next month and a half. And, great place to take in all that football action, our friends over at Twin Peaks. And, hey, football is not your game, which that'd be very surprising if you lived around here. But if it's not, you want to take in some great baseball action while the MLB postseason's going on, Twin Peaks got you covered. NBA starting up in a couple weeks. Boom. You can watch it at Twin Peaks. NHL's already started up. Boom. You can watch that at Twin Peaks as well. You can sit down and take it in with TVs as far as the eye can see. Pair it with a burger or some wings or whatever you want to eat that day. And, of course, got to have one of those 29-degree draft beers as well. Go check it out with our friends over at Twin Peaks.
each side of the ball covering for each other. We fumble right away in the second half, and short field. I know they scored a touchdown there, but defense came back out their next couple drives and just continue to play ball. And even though we made some plays at critical moments at the end, we also could have done a better job, I think, of really putting the game away at other times throughout the game. It might not even be in the fourth quarter. It might have been in the third quarter.
Welcome back in. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you here on your Tuesday. That was the voice of Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer assessing his team's 27-24 victory as they continue their 5-game winning streak and take down their third straight ranked opponent in the, at the time, number 14 Missouri Tigers, as once again Alabama looking like about the hottest team in the entire country. And it seems like a lifetime ago that they lost that Week 1 game to Florida State, because you want to talk about two programs that have gone a completely different direction since then. This
was a prove-it game for me. Like, I know they went to Georgia and won a few weeks back and beating Vanderbilt, exorcising some demons there. But going on the road to Como, playing a top 15 Missouri team, one that I picked in staff picks for this game. I think I did too. I bought into what Missouri was doing in the ground game, running the football, Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts, Bo Perbula. I mean, and Alabama's defense had not been doing well against the run game. But give Alabama a lot of credit. Yes, Missouri still ran for 163 yards, averaging 5.5 yards per carry and a touchdown. But it wasn't the explosive type of day that I think Missouri needed to win this football game. 52 yards from Ahmad Hardy, 50 from Jamal Roberts, and then Bo Perbula had 61 and a touchdown. On the other side, I mean, Alabama, Ty Simpson continues to be, can we just call him the sleeper to win the Heisman Trophy?
Is he even a sleeper, though? Is he not the leading candidate?
I just feel like he doesn't get talked about enough. I really think he is still kind of like slept on a little bit, at least in my opinion, right? I mean, he's been phenomenal for Alabama this year. 3 touchdowns on Saturday, 200 yards, 21 of 31. He's been, or 23 of 31. Been really good for this Alabama team. He keeps these numbers up with the games they still have down the stretch. He's winning it. I have no doubt about that in my mind. And like again, we all kind of wrote him off as a game manager. Oh, I don't know how good this guy's going to be. He's lived up to it, right? He has done a phenomenal job. Another 3 touchdown, no interception performance on Saturday, and they're rolling, man. I mean, this is, again, surprising to a lot of us. Defense not as dominant as you mentioned. I thought Josh Pate made a really good comparison. He's like, this is kind of what Kalen DeBoer teams are, though, right? Defense is never going to go out there and smother you for only 3 points a game, but they're going to do enough to where you can't beat him, right? He won a lot of one-score games when he was at Washington. It kind of seems like that's the way he's built this Alabama team. And at the end of the day, as long as you're winning, that's all that matters, right? Yeah, it's not your Saban-era dominating defensive performances like from those national championship teams, but they're doing something right because they're winning. They are. And now, again, I referenced the Missouri game as being like a prove-it game for Alabama. To go on the road and beat another top 15 team, this team's legit. I mean, I'm ready to say that, honestly. I think they're going to go out here and win the SEC this season. Now, the schedule remains tough. Obviously, you get Tennessee this weekend at home. Take the over. You have to. What is the over-under for that game? It's got to be in the upper 40s, right? Let's see. Got to be around 60, in my opinion. Ooh, it is. It is 58.5. Okay. Yeah, I would gladly take the over because you got 2 very high-octane offenses and 2 defenses that have struggled to slow people down. Now, that's going to be a good game on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. And then Alabama comes here to Willie B. And they get Oklahoma at home. You get LSU at home. Auburn on the road. I mean, there's a lot of tough games still on the schedule for Alabama. But, again, that's as Shane Beamer says, that's life in the SEC. It is. Every single week. So, I mean, again, it wouldn't shock me if Alabama had a slip-up at some point over these next 6 games here. But I'm feeling pretty good about them right now. They're 3-0 in the conference, so I think they can afford to lose a game at some point down the road. But they're playing just about as good as football as any team in the country right now. Well, what shocked a lot of people on Saturday was Texas rebounding after getting embarrassed by Florida the week before. 17-point victory, 23-6 in the Red River Shootout
out there in Dallas over, at the time, the number 6 Oklahoma Sooners, who looked like one of the best teams in the country. And John Mateer, returning from his hand surgery a couple weeks ago, he didn't look like he'd recovered. Threw 3 interceptions, didn't look his best. His hand was bleeding at one point. They got after him. They had him under duress the entire game. I think our perception of Oklahoma shifted, and Texas for that matter, shifted pretty drastically after this one.
I wonder, heading into this weekend for a second, I wonder how much of that film that South Carolina is going to watch from that game against Texas that they pull from and be like, on defense, like, we need to go attack John Mateer in this game.
Yep.
Do the same exact thing that Texas did, because that hand is not magically going to heal and get him back to 100% in a few days here. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen unless he's got, like a Mr. Miyagi, just healing powers or something. That's just not going to happen. So I think you have to attack him this weekend, and he did not look good. I mean, again, you mentioned the 3 interceptions, not good. He was 20 of 38 in this game, and they did nothing in the ground game with 30 carries for 48 yards. So, meanwhile, I mean, Arch Manning, he looked pretty good. I mean, 21 of 27, 166 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. I mean, probably his best overall performance of the year so far, I would say, right? I mean, not kind of excluding the performances he had against, the random cupcake schools.
Yeah, this was the first performance against like a legitimate defense that he went out there and performed well against. And give credit to his offensive line, who looked horrible against Florida the other week, where he was under duress that entire game. Only give up 1 sack. Like, he was protected pretty well, sat back in the pocket and operated. And look, he didn't go out there and sling it for 300 yards, something like that, but he was effective enough. Trey Wisner, looked like the running back from a year ago finally with 94 yards on the ground. Like, that was the best all-around performance we've seen out of Texas this year. And it's kind of one of those things like, okay, does this spark Texas to maybe becoming something in the realm of what we thought they were going to be before the season, or is this just a one-game anomaly taking on a rival? We'll have to see.
They should be able to. I mean, you go to Kentucky this weekend, you go to Mississippi State. That could be a tricky one because Mississippi State is much improved this year, even though they are not off to the best start in conference play. And then it's Vanderbilt, and then at Georgia. And then you get A&M at the end of the year, and Arkansas sandwiched in between. So you still have some tricky games coming up, but compared to other teams in this conference, I think the schedule is a lot more manageable, especially if Arch is able to play the way he did on Saturday, enhance it a little bit, and then continue to get more out of your defense because, man, they have been really good this season.
I think this game is a perfect encapsulation for just how wide open the SEC and college football is as of right now, because week to week, we think we have these teams figured out. Say, oh, okay, well, Oklahoma's obviously the way better team than Texas. No way the Longhorns go in there and win this game, and they dominate them. Right. And again, it just seems like we're having this conversation about different teams each and every week. Like, okay, how did you lose to this team but dominate this team? Or how did this team, not come anywhere close against this team, but then go out there and look like a superstar against this team? It just shows you how wide open the sport is right now.
It's crazy. Like, I mean, we think we know, Alabama's probably the favorite to win the SEC right now with the way they're playing, but that can change at a moment's notice if Tennessee goes out here and goes into Bryant-Denny and wins on Saturday. I mean, that Tennessee could be the favorite to win the SEC, a team that I don't think many expected to be highly ranked at this point in the season, with having so many question marks after, Nico leaves and stuff, and you got Joey Aguilar, and who knows what he's going to be. He's been great for them. But, yeah, I mean, look, it does feel very wide open right now to where, the end of the year, I mean, look, Texas could still easily get there with one loss in the SEC, but that margin for error right now, you got to continue to stack these wins together.
We'll get back into what happened last night in Monday Night Football, as well as take a peek at what happened in the Major League Baseball Championship Series, as well as we wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday on the Game.
A 1st and 5. Robinson off the right side, breaks free. Bijan Robinson spinning down the sideline, still going. Can they catch him? They cannot. Touchdown, Falcons, 81 yards.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyrod and Jack Belcher wrapping up hour number 1 here on your Tuesday on the Game. That was called last night on Monday Night Football, one of the 2 Monday Night Football games. Bijan Robinson breaks off an 81-yard touchdown, helping propel the Falcons 24-14 over Jack's Buffalo Bills. And if you're just tuning in, that is why Jack is wearing my Matt Ryan jersey, paying off the bet that we put together yesterday. I would have been wearing his Josh Allen jersey had the Falcons lost last night, but thankfully for me, they won. And look, the Bills are still a really good team. They're going to be just fine this year. It's just been a rough couple of weeks for them. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they all say. It's has not been a good last 2 weeks here. Again, lost to the Patriots in a game that I still can't believe you lost that game. I mean,
that Patriots team,
they're good.
They're surging, man.
They're a good team.
They're figuring it out.
But I mean, the Bills had chances to win in both these games. As I mentioned at the beginning of the hour, I mean, after that blocked field goal that Greg Rousseau had in the fourth quarter, I'm like, all right, you got a chance here. You really have a golden opportunity to go down and score and tie the game. Then you run the jet sweep on 3rd and 1. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You have a quarterback that is meant to, and I know he's taken a beating at times this year, but he is meant to go get you that 2-yard run on a QB sneak. That's what Josh Allen can do. For whatever reason, they didn't run that. I mean, you could have just ran, James Cook up the middle. I mean, he'll get you a yard or two, I would imagine, on a 3rd and short type of play. But you didn't get it. You have to punt, and it's just one of those things where your defense had chances against so many penalties in this game last night for the Bills. They had one on 3rd down last night during that long drive for the Falcons that put the game away. That really should have should have given the Bills the ball back once again with a chance to go down and score, but weren't able to, and Falcons get that field goal to go up by 10, and that was about all she wrote.
Elsewhere last night, you had the Major League Baseball Championship Series going on. Mariners jump out to a 2-0 series advantage over Toronto after throttling them last night by a score of 10-3. And I will say, given the fact that they went all 5 games with the Tigers, played that extra innings wild game on Friday night to turn around and pop the first 2 victories on the road against Toronto, that's impressive.
They are looking so good right now. Again, had to use so much pitching in that 15-inning affair in Game 5 against the Tigers, and going on the road to Toronto in less than 36 hours after that game, not an easy turnaround at all, but give the Mariners a lot of credit. They have swung the bats well offensively, gotten some timely hitting, and the pitching's also been really good. And that's the strong suit of the Mariners, is that they have a loaded pitching staff with some really good hitters on this offense, and they were able to really tee off on Trey Savage yesterday, something that, my Yankees couldn't even do for whatever reason. And the Mariners are looking really good right now to take not just one, but the first 2 games of the series on the road. I mean, all they got to do now is win 2 of the next 3 at home, and you're going to the World Series.
Elsewhere, you had game number 1 of the NLCS last night. Dodgers pick up the win, but it was the Brewers responsible for one of the more crazy plays you'll ever see in baseball.
And Muncy skies one to center field, hit well. This one's got a chance. Freeland going back to the wall. He leaps. It's in and out of his glove, but he caught it. And now chaos on the bases. Might have a play at the plate. The throw. Not in time. No, he's out. He's out. It's a forced play at the plate.
So top of the 4th, Dodgers had the bases loaded. Muncy hits what many people thought was going to be a grand slam. Sal Frelick robs the grand slam at the wall. Bases are still loaded. Teoscar Hernandez was on his way home, has to go back to tag up to try and still score, and he hit the cutoff man first, but the throw to the plate ends up getting there in time to still get Teoscar Hernandez out at home. One of the most insane double plays you'll ever see.
Just an absolute wild play that you need to see with your own eyes. And look, the Brewers got pretty lucky on that, but they had their chances in this game. I mean, bottom of the 9th. I mean, we talk about that play right there, but the Brewers had the bases loaded, 2 outs, and I saw the highlight this morning. Bryce Terang for the Brewers was up with the bases loaded in a 2-1 game, and there's been a lot of criticism for a pitch that ran inside that he backed out of the way from, didn't take a hit by pitch that would have tied the game at 2, and then he swings at, I can't even believe he swung at this pitch, a pitch that was above his head for strike 3, and it's one that got away from the Brewers. The Dodgers were the better team in this game, but the Brewers certainly had their chances.
It would have been a crying shame if, after how impressive of a performance Blake Snell had, going 8 full innings, only giving up 1 hit, obviously no runs, if they would have blown that in the bottom of the 9th with the bullpen.
Well, their bullpen's awful. That's the thing. And Roki Sasaki's been a nice piece to add to the bullpen here for the playoffs now that he's not starting in games. But, I mean, this Dodger bullpen throughout the entire season was not good at all. So having a guy like Sasaki, adding Clayton Kershaw to the bullpen will help out a lot. But, man, Blake Snell has been fantastic so far this postseason for the Dodgers.
Tonight you'll have a day off with the ALCS, so just the NLCS going on tonight, 8 o'clock or 8:08. First pitch, that coming up on TBS between the Dodgers and the Brewers as the Dodgers look to take the 2-0 series advantage. The Brewers trying to get one at home to try and even the series at 1. There's a lot of other things that happened around college football this past weekend. We'll dive into that coming up next in hour number 2. Chris Clark will jump in here with us as we get into the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating on your Tuesday here on The Game. right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Chris Clark, Jack Feltry, still rocking my nice Atlanta Falcons jersey over there. What do you think of the fit, Chris?
It's tight.
Yeah, it was a Kids XL.
It's tight.
I told him
it's tight.
I told him my strategy is because jerseys always run big, right? Like you can wear a medium T-shirt, but a medium jersey is going to engulf you. So I always buy a couple sizes down. And I've found for me, Kids XL is like perfect. It almost kind of fits like a T-shirt, a little bit bigger than that. Me and Jack a little bit different sizes, so going to be a little more snug on him. But yeah,
different shapes.
I'm glad it fit.
Well, isn't that a bonus of that Kids XL jersey probably cheaper?
That's the other thing.
I would
think
imagine.
it was a little bit cheaper
Totally
too.
cheaper.
Not cheap,
that was
but
probably
cheaper.
another reason why I went that route.
Not a bad idea.
I've had it for a few years. I don't remember what the price was, but those Nike jerseys aren't cheap.
Yeah, when you told me yesterday you had like a large jersey, I'm like, all right, I could fit perfectly into a large. But then you brought it in, I'm like, whoa, this is
Well, guys,
did it shrink?
Wouldn't have said this after the first couple weeks or before the season, but I'm almost getting to where I feel like I could feel decent about placing a Panthers jersey bet.
I was going to say undefeated at home.
Got my
3-0.
Julius Peppers jersey. I'll go to Anderson and get it. I think it's still back at my childhood home.
That's old Reebok jersey from back in the day.
Yeah, probably. It's the kind of blue color.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just saying, if y'all want, we've already taken care of the Falcons once this year.
We should have made a bet.
We should have.
I still
maybe
can't.
next one. Maybe next time.
It's insane to me that the Falcons could beat the Bills last night, and yet they couldn't even get in the red zone against the Panthers.
That's just how good we are, Tyler. That's how good we are now.
Especially at home. Like Bank of America Stadium is just a house of horrors for everybody, apparently.
I mean, I've been thrilled with the turn. I actually have been watching some Panthers football, and if you want to call me a fair weather fan, that's totally fine.
It's understandable.
Yes.
For the second week in a row, Rico freaking Dowdle, man. My God.
He's been a revelation.
Insane.
And then he gets to do it against the Cowboys last week.
There was extra motivation this past. He was talking about it heading into the game, and
what did he say? They weren't strapped or something. I can't remember what he said exactly.
And
but
hey, if you talk the talk, you better go out there and walk the walk, and he did.
The Panthers' offensive line has quietly really done some good things. I mean, I think some people have started to take notice, but I mean, Rico Dowdle deserves a ton of credit, obviously, for what he's done. But their offensive line's actually played really well as of late. There's a couple clips and pictures circulating on social media about some of the holes that they created in the run game, and us three could get back there and do a little bit of damage, I think.
So maybe the NFC South won't be the disaster that we thought it was. The Saints are their own thing off to the side there. But hey, they won a game. They won a game. They will not be defeated this year.
And that's the weird thing. Spencer Rattler, you go look at his numbers and what he's doing every week. He's doing some really good things. And somebody I saw, can't properly credit, somebody on X said this week after their last game, they're like, if Spencer Rattler had been a first or second round pick, more people would be talking about building around him and him possibly being a franchise quarterback. But his problem is he was not. He was a, fourth round pick.
Yep.
And he's playing on a bad team. And so he's not getting as much love. But people that really pay attention to the NFL are giving him some accolades, which has been cool to see.
You've all seen the meme of it's like the Bugatti next to the rundown house? Is that how we feel about Spencer Rattler on the Saints?
I would say so. I mean, they're just not a good football team, and he's doing what he can, right? And I think some of those numbers he's putting up will probably be lost a little bit in the shuffle just because he's on a very bad team. But look, I mean, he's putting up a good audition, I would say, for I think the Saints are going to probably look to, even though he's playing well, it wouldn't shock me at all if they look to go draft a quarterback in next year's draft.
Remember, they were supposed to draft Arch. That was supposed to be the plan, right? Tank for Arch.
Well, maybe Ty Simpson will be available or one of these other guys. Like, there's going to be a quarterback out there in next year's draft that's probably going to be appeasing to them. And look, Rattler, he could end up playing, for a better team maybe next year. I mean, shoot, there's going to be teams out there that need quarterbacks, and going down the draft route is not always the best option. So Rattler's showing some good things right now, and it's a good audition tape for what teams may be looking for after the season.
You could always find a team, if you've got, certainly they're probably a candidate to have the number one pick.
Yeah, sure.
They'll be up there. All indications are. There's always a team out there you can fleece.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, we'll give you the number one, number two pick. Give us a bunch of other picks and this guy and this guy. I mean, that's possible if they're smart. Maybe they can do that.
I like the Titans' odds of being the number one pick this year,
that's
considering
true.
they just fired Brian Callahan
You
yesterday.
still have the Jets.
You
0-6.
still have the Jets. Yeah, that's going to
0-6. Don't forget about those guys.
The Jets are going to have a tough time winning a game this year. By the way, the timing of Brian Callahan getting fired is interesting because you know who the Titans host this weekend?
Oh, they host the Patriots.
They host the Patriots.
Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel is going to come in, and I'm sure take it personally what they did to him a couple years ago.
As he should.
As he should.
They've had a lot of turnover in that organization.
Quite a bit.
Not always the right thing to do.
No. I also saw the owner was apparently absent from, or the daughter of the original owner of the team was absent from the press conference where they announced firing Brian Callahan. So there's a lot of dysfunction going on there, it seems.
Well, didn't even Jerry Jones not talk for the first time ever recently for the Cowboys?
Did he not? Did he not speak after the game on Sunday?
He always does.
Was he just flipping people off instead?
I thought I saw something where he didn't show up. Maybe he didn't want to answer questions about letting Rico Dowdle walk and then rush for 800 yards on you.
Yeah, he was just flipping people off at Bank of America Stadium anyway.
Hey, that was an accident.
He's flipping people off, and David Tepper
He was trying to say
throwing
hi to
drinks at him.
somebody, probably.
Yeah, no. Well, we all have that mistake, and we try and give people a thumbs up, and our middle finger just thumbs up. It's an honest mistake to make.
Who out here hasn't done that?
I know. It's an easy mistake to make. Other things, yesterday we were obviously so caught up with South Carolina, and a lot of our conversation dominated by James Franklin and Penn State, which we'll get back into in a moment. But a couple other things I wanted to touch on from the weekend that we haven't gotten to. Are we ready to buy, like, A&M is, like, legit? I feel like we've been holding out, like, they always do this. They always start off strong and then fall apart and end up 8-4. Like, this is a really good team. They beat Florida 34-17 the other day, just kind of grinded them for the entire 4 quarters of that game. Like, Elko seems to have this ship righted out there in College Station.
These next 3 games, I think, are really going to tell us if A&M is legit or not. 3 road games coming up. At Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri. You win 2 of those next 3, then I think you're fine. I think this team can go out here, beat South Carolina, beat Samford. You go to Texas at the end of the year, that could always be tricky, but look, if you only have 1 loss in these next 3 road games here, you're going to have a great chance of making the college football playoff, even if you lost to Texas at the end of the year. I mean, or potentially even going to the SEC championship game. This team has really been great so far. Mike Elko's doing a fantastic job out there. I think they're legit, but time will tell if they can handle their business going on the road, because we know that's always tricky in this conference, regardless of where you're playing.
Right now, if you ask me, and I don't obviously set odds, Vegas is a lot smarter than I am. I mean, I'd favor A&M in every game that they have left.
Yeah.
Which, we always talk about how it's so difficult. And realistically, they probably won't go unscathed in the regular season.
I don't think anybody is.
That would be very hard. But you can see that path. Like, I don't look at any game on their schedule and say, they're probably not winning that. Even though, like you said, Jack, 3 ranked games in a row. At Arkansas is maybe not the one that's on your radar, but maybe it should be, because they gave Tennessee everything they could handle in their last game. Bobby Petrino at the helm. You got to go to at LSU, then you have a bye week, then you've got at Missouri, and then you finish with South Carolina, Samford, and you do go play Texas on the road, in what should be a really good game to end the year. Right now you probably favor them in all those games. Now that might change, week to week, and obviously being favored doesn't mean you still got to go play the game. But they're one of the teams that I think has a really good shot. I mean, right now their path to the playoff looks very doable, I think. Their defense has been really good. Offensively, they've been efficient. Elko's done, I think, a really good job. And, it's a good time to bring this up. So Andy Staples wrote something about this recently that was prompted from a viewer on one of his live shows, and it was talking about all the buyouts, right?
Yep.
James Franklin, Penn State. They're talking about that. And one of their viewers brought this point up that he highlighted in a subsequent piece he wrote. He said, ask the team that Florida just played if paying the buyout was worth it.
Yeah.
Right? So now, and we don't know how they'll finish, obviously, but they're off to a good start this year. They've positioned themselves well. They certainly look like everything you would want, a talented team, a well-coached team. They've won all the games. They've had a couple narrow wins, 1 point against Notre Dame, 16-10, 6-point win over an Auburn team that has been competitive but hasn't finished a game. That money spends the same way. It's you win a game, you win a game. It's hard to win, and they've done it so far. You know, on one hand, you poke fun at A&M for you had that huge buyout. You paid $70-something million to get rid of Jimbo Fisher. Well, now look at him.
Yep.
You know, I can't say for sure that Jimbo wouldn't be, if they would have kept him, maybe he's doing okay. Probably not. It had gone bad.
Yep.
And it's also funny that this kind of happened by accident in a way.
Sure.
They wanted to go hire Mark Stoops. They had kind of a revolt, and then they pivot, and they go to Mike Elko, who had been on staff there as a defensive coordinator. He's hired, and, you know, again, we don't know where they're going to finish, but certainly off to a really good start in that era.
And that wasn't exactly a hire that got people, like, energized or excited. Like, Elko, the guy from Duke, like, okay, but yeah, he's that team has taken on the identity of him as a head coach. You know, he's very no nonsense. He's not a wow guy. He's not somebody. If you lined up all the coaches in the SEC, he probably might be the toughest one to, like, pick out of a crowd, right? Because he's just very unassuming. But again, he's a good football coach, and obviously the team's doing well this year, and we're going to see him in a couple weeks.
But that's what they needed. You know, A&M, you know, all the jokes about going 8-4 every year. You always felt like they didn't maximize what they had on the roster.
Yep.
If you're looking for a guy that can maximize what you have, you know, Mike Elko's done that. Obviously, he hasn't been a head coach for 20 years. He's mostly a defensive coordinator, had a shorter tenure at Duke. But he's a guy that you felt like, all right, this is a guy that kind of maximizes what you have. They're always, you know, as of late, they've always been one of the more talented teams in the country, but they just couldn't put it together. And, again, what time will tell if they can finish this thing off and make the college football playoff, but they certainly look like a team that's maximizing what they have on that roster this year.
You brought up buyouts, and I want to get to some of those later on in the hour, but I want to dive back in to the Penn State discussion coming up next. Their athletic director talked yesterday about why this decision was made to move on from James Franklin. We'll hear from him coming up next and dive back in to what exactly happened in Happy Valley on Saturday. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's already Chris Clark, Jack Veltri on your Tuesday on the Game.
Let's take a minute to tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. Michael, Nathan, and their entire team do a great job with anything that you may need at your home or business from a tech or audio-visual standpoint. They've been to my home. They've been to Wes Mitchell's home. They can come out to your home or business and help you with anything that you may need, whether it's something as simple as mounting a TV, installing wireless speakers, helping you with your internet signal, or turning your home into a smart home where you can control your lights, devices, thermostat, all your electronics from the touch of a button on your iPad or on your phone, whether you're home or away. Securities, cameras, they can do all of it for you. Go check out some examples of their past work, real work, Integrated Media Inc. on Instagram or Facebook. Again, they've been to my home and Wes's home. We've loved our experience with Michael, Nathan, and the entire team at Integrated Media. Give them a call, 803-948-8327. Local service, great service. They can source it for you and install it in your home at Integrated Media.
you take data, right? This is not a 3-game thing. This is really diving into where we were as a program. What is the trajectory of this program? And you all know, and I'm not shy to admit it, I'm here to win national championship. And I believe our fans deserve that. And I wake up every day trying to achieve that goal. So, long-winded answer, Rich. It was kind of on a Sunday. Hey, this is probably the time.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's outright Chris Clark, Jack Belcher, along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. That was Penn State Athletic Director Pat Kraft yesterday at a presser explaining his reasoning on firing James Franklin on Saturday after their third straight loss, this time to Northwestern, 22-21. And obviously Penn State was not going to be in a position to make a return to the college football playoff, where they did make the semifinals a year ago, the closest they'd come to a national championship in basically 40 years, which Jack and I talked about this yesterday. We didn't get a chance to dive into it on the 11 o'clock hour, Chris. I'm still wrapping my head around this just because of how shocking it was. They actually pulled the trigger on this on Saturday.
So my question when I hear Pat Kraft say that is, if it wasn't a 3-game thing, if it was more about trajectory, like when did you start measuring that? Because Penn State, Franklin has been there a long time, and I think there's some validity to the thought that for a lot of coaches, once you get to a certain point, both sides kind of wear on each other unless you're winning really big.
Yep.
We've even seen it at Clemson with Dabo Swinney, where, you have a 9 or 10 win season and you have a couple of those in a row and it's panic time,
Yep.
Which is kind of weird. But with Franklin, yes, there have been, obviously the big game is the thing you look at. They just made the college football playoff last year, which when you look at the trajectory, that seems pretty good. This year, they're not going to make, barring a miracle.
They're not done yet.
They're not done yet. They're probably not making the college football playoff. Now, James Franklin won't have the opportunity to try to turn that around. So you get what I'm getting at? Like, when is the trajectory? Like, if it's not the 3 games, what was it? Because you obviously felt good enough about it to keep it going after you made the college football playoff last year. Yeah, you lost, but you were close.
Closer you've been in a long time.
You were close against Oregon, and then the wheels fell off. We get that. So if the 3 games don't have anything to do with the trajectory, what is it? Because you still seem to be recruiting well. I don't know. I don't know if I fully buy that answer, which then made me think, all right, well, does Pat Kraft have a solution in mind?
He better.
Does he have somebody lined up? And if so, is it better than Franklin? I mean, obviously he has a short list, right?
Yeah.
But I think your point's valid, Tyler. Like, you better have a solution lined up, and it better be one that's better than what you had. And I think James Franklin, in a way, is like a victim of his own success. Like, he did some, and people, even Pat Kraft, the AD there, acknowledged those. Like, everybody's acknowledged that he took over a situation that was not great and turned Penn State back into not just a respectable program, but a contender, and he did it as recently as last year. I understand the frustration this season. I understand some of the frustrations of the past, but man, it is a high bar to clear when you're making a change in the middle of the season right now, and then have to go look at doing something, bigger and better. It's one thing if, like, I was thinking about this. So at Georgia, Tyler.
Yep.
Mark Richt, a lot of success. He didn't win the big one either, quote unquote, but he had a lot of success there. Georgia could have kept that going, and he probably would have been really good for a while longer.
He'd probably still be there.
But they had a solution lined up. It was Kirby Smart, and that move worked out very well.
But it was a big risk.
It was a risk.
The guy that had never been a head coach before.
Never been a head coach, but they pulled the trigger, and to their credit, to Kirby's credit, everybody, it worked out. Can you do the same basically at Penn State? Because they had even more success recently than Georgia was having. Now you're having to go out and find a solution that's better than what you already had.
You mentioned it, Chris, that they need to have their answer for who that guy is going to be sooner rather than later. I mean, number one, you have the early signing period coming up in less than 2 months from now, right? It's that first week of December, if I'm not mistaken. And you're already seeing a lot of guys from Penn State decommit, like highly rated guys, like 4 or 5 star players. And I can only imagine how that's going to affect things moving forward. Like, are you going to have a good recruiting class, if one at all, for this upcoming winter? That I don't know. And also, you think about, if you are looking for your quick fix, that guy that you have on your short list to come in, is it going to be that guy, or is it going to be, what about the interim? I mean, we heard Penn State's AD talking about how they're going to give the interim a fair shake through the rest of the season. And what if Penn State goes on and does win these next 6 games to finish 9-3 on the year? Does that, I mean, you obviously have to go with him to be your head coach for next year, but I think they would probably look on the outside, to be honest. It's just, when do you get that hire made? And is it a sitting head coach? Or are you going to go outside options, maybe call up somebody that, maybe like an Urban Meyer or something? Would he be interested in coming to coach at Penn State? Or do you go down the sitting head coach route, and when do you make that hire is the question that I have.
So right now, this seems like Matt Rule's job to say no to. He, former Penn State player, he and Pat Kraft are apparently like the best of friends. So he's like the first call, right? And if I saw correctly, he didn't outright deny the opportunity to take this job when asked about it yesterday in his media availability. So he's the first call that you make. Is he your best option? I don't know. Sometimes hiring the alumni, seems like the best idea, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Look at Scott Frost at Nebraska. Now, you look at what Matt Rule did at Baylor. You look at what he did at Temple, and he has had some really good seasons. The jury's still out on his time at Nebraska. They have gotten better each season. They look like they're going to have a strong year this year. He's not gotten them to be the point of, Big Ten championship contention quite yet, but who knows? I don't know if he goes to Penn State and suddenly makes them better than what James Franklin did, and that's the risk that you take because, again, Franklin had been there a while, and yes, we dogged him for losing the big game, 4-21 against top 10 teams. We all know the record, but hiring somebody to take you further than he did, that's not a guarantee. And this is not a guarantee somebody can even get you back in the realm of where he had them at the end of last year, being in the college football playoff semifinals. You just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I understand wanting to take what's been built on and take it to the next level. That makes sense. But you have to be very, very sure that you can get a hire that's going to do that. And there's no sure things, in college football. I mean, remember when Scott Frost went to Nebraska?
It seemed perfect.
Perfect. It's native son. He just had a great success at UCF, and he flopped.
Yep.
And we've seen that a bunch of other places. We've seen coaches where people have said, that's never going to work. And it worked big time. Dabo Swinney's a great example of that, I think. And so, with Rule, a lot of it makes tons of sense. And he has a very good job right now.
He does. One where the expectations and pressure is not insanely high either.
Not as high.
Yeah.
He's got time. Matt Rule, and this has been pointed out a lot, he's something like 2-22 against top 25 teams.
Yeah.
Now, the counter to that is, for a couple of those years, he was in the middle of a big-time rebuild at Nebraska. Okay, get that. And then he was at Baylor, which he built up.
Yep.
And then he was at Temple, which was terrible, and he built up, right? So I think if he was 2-22 at Penn State, that's a lot different than being 2-22 at Temple, Baylor, Nebraska. And Matt Rule has built programs everywhere he's been, except the NFL. College programs. He's a program builder. I don't know how Nebraska will finish this year, but you can see that they've gotten a lot better from last season and where they were at the beginning. So, Kurt Cignetti from Indiana has won. Google him. He's won everywhere that he's been. He's another one that is thought to be at the top of this list, and it would make also a lot of sense. So, when you plug those guys in, you say, yeah, I could see it. I could see them taking Penn State to the next level. But again, even those guys, not a guarantee. And so this is, again, a big risk, I think.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And again, the shocking part of this from Saturday is the fact that not only it happens so quickly, you go from being towards the top of college football to being fired basically in the blink of an eye, but the buyout was so insanely high. And it's not the biggest buyout we've ever seen. Obviously, Jimbo Fisher's still sets the bar really high, but it begs the question of where's kind of that line of what's too big and what isn't when it comes to college football buyouts. We'll take a look at some of the biggest ones in college football and where James Franklin's stacks up against those coming up next as the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating, rolls along on your Tuesday here on The Game.
All right, everybody, let's tell you about our friends at Krantz Cooling and Heating. They are, of course, the presenting sponsor on Tuesdays and Thursdays of the Garnet Trust Hour here on The Game, a company that I've trusted, a company that Wes has also trusted. That's Krantz Cooling, K-R-A-N-T-Z, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com. 0% APR for 60 months on qualifying equipment. You can pay your bill online. They've got financing offers. You can also sign up for their Krantz Club, which is their maintenance plan that helps you make sure that your system's running in tip-top shape. They do residential and commercial HVAC work, a trustworthy team, a family-owned business that's been helping families and businesses around the Midlands since 1983. I recommend them to everyone because they've done a great job at my home. They can do the same for yours. Installation, maintenance, repairs, KrantzCooling.com or 803-672-3224.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our Chris Clark and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. Coming up today at 1 o'clock. Of course, you can listen to Coach Beamer and his weekly Tuesday presser during the halftime show. Myself, Mill Gunner, as he gives his final thoughts of LSU and turns his attention to Oklahoma this upcoming weekend. We're talking about the James Franklin thing. And again, one of the reasons why this was so shocking on Saturday was the high amount of buyout that Penn State now owes to James Franklin. In fact, last week, USA Today put out their list of top 25 largest buyouts in college football. James Franklin at the time was at $48.7 million, which was 12th on that list of largest buyouts prior to him getting fired over the weekend. And there's kind of this imaginary line. And again, we as journalists and radio hosts, we're not pulling in millions and millions of dollars ourselves. So we're talking about amounts of money we can't even fathom that we'll never see in our lifetimes. But there's kind of this imaginary line that I feel like we draw when it comes to buyouts in specifically college football, because that's the sport we focus on the most. Like, well, that's too much. Well, that's not enough. And it really kind of varies school by school. Again, A&M paid $77 million for Jimbo Fisher to go away. And as you mentioned earlier, like, hey, it's actually kind of working out for right now with Mike Elko and how things are going out there in College Station. Penn State obviously had no problem forking over nearly $50 million for their buyout. But like below him, Mark Stoops, which is at the time was the 13th highest at $37.7 million. But if you read some of the insider reporting from KSR, they're actually not afraid to pay that if things continue to go in the way they are with that season as of right now. Brett Bielema was above them at 11, $49.5 million. I don't know if they'd be willing to pay that if things went sideways there. Like, it's so interesting, school to school, who's willing to go that far and who's not. And it really kind of begs the question of who really is safe in college football these days with these, and credit to the agents that work these out, these astronomical buyouts for the most part at just about every single school.
I think one thing with the Franklin buyout specifically that's being talked about here, and it is a important distinction, is that he does have language that requires him to make a good faith, diligent effort to find other employment, and there is an offset clause, a mitigation clause.
Yep.
So, now lawyers will require a lot of billable hours, I think, to figure out all this if it comes to a dispute. But basically, James Franklin is supposed to, find another job in coaching or broadcasting, something that fits his skill set per his contract. And then if Penn State, if a year passes, Penn State says, "Man, you've been at the beach a lot, James. Like, what? Have you been trying to find a job?" Supposed to give them documentation of, hey, I've tried. And James Franklin can find another job.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few jobs out there he could take today.
Sure.
I'm sure if he wanted.
He could honestly.
People want to hire him.
He could honestly stay in the Big Ten if he wanted to.
He could. And so, that will reduce ultimately what Penn State has to pay here as long as he finds another job. Now you compare that to Jimbo Fisher, who had an even bigger buyout with no offset language. Like, he could have taken a job the next day and he would have gotten that full buyout, which is, great job by Jimmy Sexton there, obviously. So, and I think it goes to a larger conversation, too, of do these big coaching buyouts continue? I feel like we get told some things about college athletics that make sense on the surface but don't end up coming true. And one of them was, okay, well, when revenue share comes around, that's going to reduce all the numbers that these players are getting paid. That has not happened. It's only increased. Now we got coaches out here talking about $30 and $40 million rosters. So that hasn't happened. We've got, once NIL hits, these coaching salaries are going to go down. That hasn't happened. They've only gone up still. Now the latest one is, they're going to have to do something about these buyouts. Now maybe that one will come true, maybe. But when there's competition for coaches, when there's a market for coaches, I mean, the market is what the market is, and so far they haven't gone down. I think it's going to take some maybe it takes some collusion in a good way, not in a negative sense, for administrators to come together and say, we're not going to hand these out. But really, if you've got a coach that you want, these agents are good. They're good at floating their coach's name, their client's name for other jobs. Like, they kind of have you. And it's easy to say, well, just don't give them the buyout. Okay.
Not that simple.
Not that simple, really. And now, are there also cases where ADs have given out new contracts or increased buyouts or what have you when there's not really an actual threat of the coach leaving? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is Kirby Smart going to leave Georgia to go take another job?
No.
Probably not. And he's going to keep getting raises. But what else are you going to do?
I would say it's almost kind of like the paranoia factor. We got to make sure he's happy. Got to make sure he wants to stay here. So, when Texas or the NFL comes calling or something like that, which I doubt he leaves for either one, but to make yourself feel better, it's like, all right, well, let's bump him up a little bit more. By the way, his buyout, to no surprise, is currently number one right now at a staggering $105.1 million. Now, these are all numbers if they were due this year. That obviously changes year to year.
Yeah.
Still a large number, though. And no one else is even relatively close. Like, Ryan Day is the next highest at $70.9 million. I mean,
you could almost buy out Mark Stoops with the difference between Kirby Smart and Ryan Day's buyout.
I mean, what would you buy with all this money? I mean, it's a lot of money right there.
Yeah. I mean, and Matt Rule talked about it yesterday at his presser when he was asked about the Penn State job. He's like, don't get me wrong, making all that money is great, but he was kind of talking about families and, seeing what had been said about James Franklin and his family, some of his own coaches, and he said, these are people, so it's not just about the money. But no, I mean, the point is, I don't know. It's easy to say, well, this should change, but right now we are in a market where on the players' side, the players basically have all the power, and on the coaches' side, the coaches really have all the power. We have not seen any evidence that coaching buyouts are going to go down or that salaries are going to go down. The only thing we've seen is that when a coach gets in trouble, we saw this with Brent Venables. We saw it with Mike Gundy, who now, that trouble caught up with him. I'm going to give back some money. I'll take $1 million off my salary. We'll give it back to the school for NIL or whatever. But generally, like, we haven't seen schools just say, for a coach who's having success, I think that's the line.
Yeah.
They're not saying, hey, we're not going to give you an extension. We're not going to give you a raise. We're not going to. We're going to ask you to lower your buyout. We really don't see that.
Sure.
I mean, you just don't see that in the sport now. And I think it goes back to what we say these days. You're either getting extended or you're getting fired. And there are some examples, of a coach always working on an expiring contract. But if you're working on an expiring contract, it's probably moving towards the getting fired portion of the movie.
By the way, one to watch here, number 6. Mike Norvell, buyout of $58.7 million. Well, look, we thought they had things fixed after week 1. That's not the case. They've lost 3 straight, including to 2 teams in Pitt and in Virginia that they probably didn't have any business losing those games to. He's on an 8-game losing streak in conference play. Florida State might be ponying up some money themselves here pretty soon.
I mean, it's certainly possible. It's just been a complete 180 from what we thought Florida State would have been, and I think this is why you don't judge a team just based off of one game. Like, everyone was, putting Florida State in the college football playoff right after they beat Alabama in week 1. It's like, that game was on August 30th. That you still have a bunch of months ahead of you to see what your team is really going to be like. And now we see what Florida State is. As of right now, they're a mediocre team with, granted, a pretty favorable schedule coming up.
We thought that about the schedule initially.
Like, I mean, Miami was going to always be a tricky game, but Virginia, Pitt, games like you said, Tyler, they probably had no business losing. You have no business losing to Stanford this weekend, but guess what? You got to go out to, you got to go out to Stanford this weekend. You got to go out to California and play that game at night. I mean, that could always be tricky. We see how the time difference and stuff affects these teams. You get Wake, you go to Clemson. I think that's probably a loss now, considering the way that Clemson's playing a lot better. I mean, the schedule is favorable, but I mean, shoot. I mean, if you drop a few more games here, you're running the risk of, are you even going to make a bowl game this year? And I mean, that might be enough right there for Florida State to pull the trigger. If they don't make a bowl game for another consecutive year after the near-perfect season 2 years ago, that's going to be an interesting discussion in the offseason.
It's been a pretty busy season so far with coaches getting fired, and I imagine there are more coming very, very soon. We'll hit the oddities of college football to wrap up hour number 2 as the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating, rolls along here on your Tuesday on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's Ira, Chris Clark, and Jack Belcher wrapping up the hour here on the game. It's time for the oddities of college football. What weird things happen over the weekend across this great sport that we love so much? Jack, we'll start off with your personal submission because I think we saw the worst punt ever in the Illinois-Ohio State game.
Yeah, that was a when I watched that, I'm like, wait, what happened? And then I see they show the replay on Fox, and his knee was down as he was getting ready to punt. First off, it was an awful snap. And, I mean, it's just, when do you ever see something like that happen? Right?
Because
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, quite frankly, considering not all punts are made to be good.
Well, because when he fielded the punt, his knee was on the ground. Of course, when you are holding the ball and your knee is on the ground, guess what? You were considered a down ball carrier at that point. So that effectively, and they were already on their own side of the field, that effectively acted as a turnover at that point in time, turnover on downs. That not that Ohio State needed help beating Illinois, as they pretty much ran away with that game, but that certainly helped them with the short field after that.
Yeah, I had actually not seen that. That was bad. Bad snap, like you said. I mean, that's kind of what you have to blame. I mean, if you're the punter, you're trying to go down there and get the thing, and it's easy to say, make sure your knee isn't down, but, you know, you're just trying to field the thing.
You're only as good as your snap is.
There's not been a whole lot of things to cheer about out in Stillwater so far this year. They've already fired Mike Gundy. Season's lost, but sometimes you can just cheer for guys being dudes. Are you familiar with Section 231 at Boone Pickens Stadium?
I'm not.
No.
On Saturday, and again, this was not a full stadium by any means. Section 231 in like the mid-tier deck was completely empty, except for one man standing shirtless, waving his T-shirt over his head. That one man turned to 4, which turned to 12, which turned to 20, which turned to 100, which turned to a couple of hundred, and pretty soon, Section 231 was full of nothing but shirtless guys waving their T-shirts over their head. When you're having a tough season, you got to find a way to enjoy it somehow. Dudes rock. Section 231, shout out.
That was quite the – I see the tweet you have here from Barstool. A story in 4 parts. That is quite the tale. It just continues to get bigger and bigger, and Oklahoma State's having a real tough run these last 2 seasons here, this year and last year. Firing Gundy, obviously, a few weeks ago, and not much to cheer about there, but at least these guys are having fun.
For those moments, at least, those guys were happy, and that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, you got to have fun, you know? That's important.
Now, can we designate this specifically a shirtless section? Are you allowed to do that?
There's probably a rule against that, but I think unofficially, you could, like, unofficially make it a thing.
Like, if you're watching them with a shirt on, be like, hey, what are you doing? You know what we do here. 231, man. Get with it.
Will Oklahoma State win another game this season?
I would venture to say no. Will they lose any parties? Probably not, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a shirtless section at your stadium,
that's pretty awesome.
You're doing some things.
Think they'll incorporate that in like CFB 27 next year?
Let's hope.
Or do an update to 26?
What's the saying out there? Like some teams fans say never lost a tailgate. Well,
exactly.
These fans have never lost. I don't know what it would be for this, like a cheering section, or
this is their own thing.
A shirtless party.
I'm always a fan of a very good, long, sustained drive, and I always try and seek one out every single week for the IDs. Here's one for you. UCF, 17 plays, 40 yards, 9 minutes and 2 seconds off the clock, and they punted.
How do you go 40 yards on 17 plays?
I do not know. That's some Iowa stuff right there.
They had on the punt, it was 4th and 27 at the Cincinnati 46-yard.
They barely crossed midfield.
So I can imagine there were quite a few penalties on this drive.
Now you've prompted me. I'm looking up the drive chart now because I'm actually going to have to go back and find that full game and just watch. I mean, how do you even? There were some penalties, right? So that might have to be the case.
Has to be.
Wow,
that's pretty amazing, right?
They had three penalties on the drive, so that helps.
Yeah.
And then they were able to get some yardage back and get a couple first downs. Incredible. I've never heard of a 17-play, 40-yard drive. I was expecting you to be like 87-yard drive. No.
Which usually, 40. I'm down with that, but that one's even better considering that it barely went across midfield.
Yes.
We'll end with this. Iowa State, I believe, is down to their 3rd string punter which is offensive lineman Carson Rhodes at 6'8", 310 pounds, or no, excuse me, fourth string kicker. That's got to be the biggest kicker ever, right? You'd be hard pressed to find me somebody larger than that kicking a football at the Division I FBS level.
What was the guy's name from Penn State?
Joey Julius.
Joey Julius,
who was the thicker kicker?
I mean, yeah. I mean, him didn't
Harrison Mevis.
I was about to say, didn't Missouri have a big kicker too?
Not this big.
Thicker though.
Not this big. That'll do it for the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Schooling Heating. Up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday here on the game.
Hey, everyone, if you're looking for someone to help you out with your roof, check out our friends over at Classic Roofing, Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, families that live right here in the Midlands, and a local, reliable company that can help you out, whether you are a homeowner or a business owner. You know, taking good care of your roof can be challenging, but the folks over at Classic Roofing are a company that you can trust. 803-590-7870 is how you can give them a call. Get a free estimate also online by going to classicroofingsc.com. They're here for all your roofing needs. They specialize in commercial and residential roofing projects, whether it's inspections, installations, replacements, or repairs. They're a GAF certified roofer, and only about 7% of roofers nationwide even have that certification. So, you know, you'll be getting great service and local service. Build your new roof online with their virtual design tool, classicroofingsc.com. Check them out today for your commercial and residential roofing needs.
11 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyrek, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, along with you here on the game. Wes, you just missed Jack wearing a couple sizes too small Falcons jersey as punishment this morning.
I saw the photos.
You saw the photos?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Those
Just
will live
medium.
forever.
I saw.
It's actually a kid's XL.
So I did not pick up on the fact that we got some. Obviously, I know Jack is a Bills fan.
Yep.
Because he tells you about it every day on social media. So you also can't be around Jack long without finding out he's a Yankees fan.
Yes.
But it didn't really, I guess, hit me that. I feel like you don't really talk about the Falcons, Tyler.
Well, there's not been a whole lot of reason to these past handful of years.
That's true.
So last night was fun, but yeah, not a ton of bragging since February of 2017.
I told Tyler West that I actually feel, halfway decent about maybe placing a Panthers bet.
Okay, all right.
Well, they beat the Falcons already.
They
I
did.
mean, they've played
Handily.
pretty well.
They have. They're watchable now.
What, 2 of the last 3? Well, but then they'll throw in an unwatchable game or 2.
Well,
Well,
they've
yeah,
had a lot of
when they
those
leave
still.
when they leave Charlotte, that's when they become unwatchable.
Yeah.
If they play every game at home, unstoppable.
Yeah, just that Charlotte home field advantage, raucous crowd. Let me tell you. I will say this: I have Bijan on my fantasy team.
Good
Stud.
monster.
That guy's fun to watch.
They're putting up. We've got FS1 up on the TV here. They got the Super Bowl odds up. I was going to say the Panthers weren't up there. They're up there. Well, no, they weren't on the Super Bowl odds. They do have odds to win the NFC, plus 12,000.
Okay, place your bets.
We'll take it. I have my Julius Peppers jersey, Wes. Might see if Tyler wants to make a bet. Stick it on. I don't know.
What size is it?
It's big.
It's big.
It's one of the oversized jerseys.
It'd probably engulf me. There's a reason I buy kids XLs.
I don't know, and I was careful not to make Jack did look silly wearing it, but I was careful not to make too much fun because if you try to put that on me, I couldn't wear it very well either. But we'll see. I'll think about it.
I'd be open to it.
Okay.
Whenever they play each other again. But this time you got to leave. This one will be in Atlanta, so you don't get the
Watch out.
daunting Bank of America Stadium home field advantage this time.
Guys, I was a Panthers fan when it was Ericsson Stadium, so
Wow.
that tells you. My first ever jersey when I was a kid, Kerry Collins.
Yes.
Back
And when
in
they
the
played
day.
at Death Valley.
Back in the day. Back in the Wesley Walls, Mark Carrier days.
What year did
That
it
was the
become
best.
Bank of America?
I don't. It's been that a long time
It's been
now.
a
Yeah.
while.
I feel
Been a
like I
while.
don't remember it ever
Yeah.
not being Bank of America.
Yeah.
Well, Ericsson's not even a thing anymore. I don't think.
I was going to say, is it? Yeah, I don't know.
Join the list
gone.
of defunct companies that once sponsored stadiums like Sports Authority. Anyways, of course, our focus here is South Carolina. And yesterday we obviously dove deep into what happened against LSU. And there's a lot of things we didn't really get to yesterday. So focused on what was happening with the O-line, obviously the firing of Lonnie Teasley and all that. And, we'll see what Sean Elliott does in his first full week as the offensive line coach heading into Oklahoma coming up this weekend. We'll obviously hear from Coach Beamer coming up in about 2 hours and get his expanded thoughts and everything that's gone down in the past couple days. One person we didn't really dive into yesterday much was the play of Lenore Sellers. And we brought up the number that he was under pressure, 65% of his dropbacks, didn't have a lot of room to operate. There were more designed runs for him, I think 9 or 10 total by the end of the game, but even still didn't have a ton of lanes to run through when he did take the football. And some of his decision-making when it came to throwing the football wasn't the best either. So it wasn't the all-around best game. You're still in it, obviously, late and had your opportunities, but came up short there. And it kind of continues to go to this mixed bag of a season we've gotten out of 16 so far.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, guys, frankly, yes, some of it is on Sellers, but then just how much of it is on the pass rush, from the opponent, the lack of pass protection for South Carolina. How much of it is on the fact that there has been such a consistent issue with pass protection that even when there is time, he feels like there is pressure and you start seeing ghosts. I was having flashbacks on the intentional grounding calls to Spencer Rattler at Texas A&M a couple of years ago where he just kind of flicked the ball out of there. I'm sure maybe I think I recall that week in practice, hey, we got to get rid of the ball, and he has it ingrained in his head, get the ball out, and then they say, well, you're not quite outside the tackle box. Very similar plays there, and I think that's a little bit of like an attention to detail thing. Like he on at least one of those probably could have gotten a couple more steps further outside, and then it's free game. And I feel like that's another one of those rules. Sometimes they call it like by the absolute letter of the law. Other times, if you get the ball out, it's well past the line of scrimmage, you're close to being outside the tackle box or kind of right on the line, they give you the benefit of the doubt. In this case, they did not give Sellers the benefit of the doubt, and it hurt, and I think that's something he'll work on. But certainly, I think this was the best secondary South Carolina's played this year. There were some open receivers at times. There were also some times where, I feel like the coverage was a little bit tighter than we have seen in some of these other games. Also, did you bust out like huge rushing totals from running Sellers? No. But I don't think it can be lost on anybody that you had your best rushing performance of the season overall when you doubled down on, hey, we're going to get Sellers involved in the running game. How much of some of your success elsewhere is based on teams having to account for Sellers is going to keep this ball? I think that is like the biggest advantage. Yes, at times there's going to be plays where there's going to be games where he's just going to go off in the running game. Some of it may be designed. Some of it's just him taking off, off of pass plays. But if you force teams to account for him, it makes it just one little step easier in terms of your run blocking for everybody else. So, actually pretty good plan in the run game. They got some other guys involved. They got Jared Brown involved. They got Brian Rowe involved just to give some little kind of vertical or reverse type looks, or like horizontal looks. And I think had some good things there. So the run game stuff for Sellers, he was running for his life a lot of times, did, escape artist type stuff again. But, yeah, the passing game, I'm sure he went back and looked and probably wasn't what he was wanting.
Yeah, and I think it just inconsistent, is the word that comes to mind. And I think we've seen that in all facets this season. Go back to the Missouri game. Sellers has a huge game passing in that contest. And, Mike Shula, the offensive coordinator, pointed out after that game, hey, honestly, part of the reason why we're able to have more success in the passing game is because, this is paraphrasing, right? But basically, Missouri was so keyed in on the run that it opened up some opportunities in the passing game, kind of daring us to pass the ball down the field. They were able to do it, but they couldn't run the football at all in that game. This game, you were able to run the football, but LSU probably saw the Missouri tape and said, hey, we got to make sure that does not happen. I think that opened up some opportunities for South Carolina in the run game. And to their credit, they schemed up some stuff. I thought the backs had, especially Fuller with his explosive run, and then Faison, I thought had his best game just in terms of his vision, breaking some tackles, how he carried the football. Sellers made some things happen too. But what was the inconsistency in this game? Well, go back to the penalties, some of the decisions, the protection, and then obviously the passing game. So it wasn't just one thing in the passing game. I agree with you, Wes. Some of it is on Sellers, making a different decision, seeing ghost. If you want, people always want to try to narrow this thing down. And I do think that this year, if the protection is better, some measure better, that I think Sellers is also having a better year, because then the whole seeing ghosts thing doesn't come into play quite as much, in my opinion.
Well, and sports can be like politics sometimes. You have like whataboutism, where it's like if you point one thing out, people say, well, what about this? And you just kind of keep moving the goalpost and, well, what about that? And really, in the case of this, it is, you can look at an offense as a whole, you can look at the passing game as a whole in a given game and say, why wasn't it more successful? One play, it might be, hey, Sellers did not see that open receiver. Another play, it might be, well, it was a bad play call for what the opponent was in coverage-wise. Another play might be bad pass pro. So, I still, again, we'll hear from Shula tomorrow. I I'm very curious to see what the thought process was on the 4th and 4 call. Like, what was that where that ball was supposed to go based on that coverage? Was that supposed to be, one where he could read it out with the progression? I did not like certainly the result of where that ball went based on that coverage. There's a lot of man coverage on Saturday. Could you have given the receivers, could you have given the passing game a little bit better chance by some more just man-beater type concepts where you're trying to create some of that disruption, trying to create some contact with defenders in order to free up guys in man coverage? I will say this, Sellers in the running game, you look at the overall numbers, it doesn't look pretty. You look at what he actually ran for when you remove the sacks, which we know college football counts sacks in the rushing total. He ran for 34 yards on designed runs, 40 yards on scrambles. Obviously not some dominant 150-yard day, but you're still talking about a game where he's ran for 74 yards, which you add that into everything else they did, and you'll take that, man. Like, you absolutely, knowing what we had seen from the rushing attack coming into that game, if you run for 248 yards total, taking out the sacks, you'll take that. And to Chris's point, I think because so many people are talking about Fuller's run and this conversation about, hey, why did Fuller not get more carries after that? Valid question. At the same time, if you look at who ran the ball more consistently in this game, in terms of just, 10 here, 10 there, it actually was Rasul Faison. Almost all of Fuller's yardage was on the one run. Faison really had a great game. It was just out completely, I would say, overshadowed by both Fuller's run and the conversation surrounding Fuller's run. Faison, 13 for 68, 5.2 yards a carry, and 3.38 yards per carry after contact. Forced 5 missed tackles. Sellers forced 12 missed tackles in this game. I think half of them were from Jack Pyburn, but even then, the rest of the team, 6 more missed tackles.
Yeah. And again,
I'm only slightly exaggerating by that.
Well, and he had a couple of magic plays where he had to duck some guys in the backfield and get something out of what would have been sacks, and obviously that goes into the pressure that he was under all night there in Baton Rouge that ended up kind of being the final straw that led to Lonnie Teasley being let go as the offensive line coach, which now shifts Sean Elliott over there. What does that mean for not only the offensive line, but also the tight ends now that Sean Elliott is going to be a little bit busier with his new responsibility? We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday here in the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. A reminder, the Little Release Special Teams Touchdown Contest rolls on to another week. $500 will be up for grabs this weekend as the Gamecocks take on the Sooners. Go online to 1075thegame.com. If you've not already, to sign up for the Little Release Special Teams Touchdown Contest, and if we can get a special team score, you could win all that money in the pot come next week. Obviously, yesterday we focused a lot on the Lonnie Teasley side of the decision to move on from him. On Sunday, you now bring in Sean Elliott as your new offensive line coach for the rest of the season, maybe longer than that. We'll have to see, obviously, for the next 6 games at least, and hopefully we'll see some results come of that this weekend, taking on a very good defense in Oklahoma here at Williams-Brice Stadium. But one aspect we didn't really get to talk about is what happens with tight ends now. As now that Sean Elliott has the responsibility of the offensive line, he will shift the role of tight ends coach over to Ben Burris, who has been an offensive assistant, a guy that's been around this program since the beginning of the year, had bounced around to a couple different NFL stops, been with Shula in some places like the Panthers, and obviously somebody with a lot of experience, and now gets an opportunity to take over a position coach role. So what more do we need to know about Ben Burris as he takes over the tight end coaching spot?
Yeah, first of all, he is a Gamecock. He's from Sumter, South Carolina. And he graduated from USC in 2012. So obviously, you're talking about somebody that knows the program, that's all about the program, and I'm sure was probably excited to get the chance to come back in January, in his initial role. And, I think when you look at a move like this, you're always looking for, if you're Shane Beamer, all right, who on staff that is in a kind of smaller title role, it has been doing well, has impressed us, and may be ready for a little bit more on their plate. And in this case, it was Ben, who spent 10 years in the NFL. A lot of that was with the Giants. A good portion of that was with the Panthers. And, initially made this move over as kind of – so every time, for those who don't know, whenever there's an OC change – and maybe these kind of they don't, it's not technically an analyst. They're just calling these guys assistants now, which can be, Chris, I feel like very confusing because you still have assistant coaches, which is like your traditional, what you would call on the field coach, right? These guys are what you would traditionally call off the field coaches, but nowadays they can be on the field too. So very confusing in terms of how these things are structured. But basically, they are there to assist your offensive coordinator, assist your on-the-field position coaches as well. And so Burris was helping with Mike Furry. Obviously, has an understanding with the tight ends. He was kind of like a pass game assistant before coming in when Shula took over the offense, and some of those guys in those assistant/analyst/ whatever you call them roles went with Dow Loggins to App State. So typically, new OC comes in, you bring in some of your guys. And so I got to imagine this just made a lot of sense for Burris since he's from Sumter. He had been with Shula with the Panthers. Now he comes in. It would be a little bit more, it sounds like, of a maybe team effort with the tight ends. Ben will primarily be the tight ends coach, but Todd Haney, who's a student assistant that actually used to work with the quarterbacks quite a bit in recruiting and stuff like that, he's going to help out. And then Sean Elliott, when it comes to like a lot of the run game aspects, as you would imagine, these things are tied together anyway. He will continue to help out with the tight ends. And as Beamer pointed out, you do have some guys here, Brady Hunt, Jordan Dingle. I mean, they're kind of coach on the field type guys at this point in their careers anyway. Even Maurice Brown at this point has played quite a bit of ball, especially for, a former walk-on guy. So a little bit of an older room, especially, there's no Michael Smith in there anymore now either.
Yeah, we had someone tell us over the summer, Wes, that Ben Burris is a really, really sharp guy. And he's got an interesting background in that he's a young guy but has already worked in the NFL for quite a while and actually worked in different capacities. Worked on defense, worked in kind of the data and analytics division for a team, and was also an assistant to Steve Wilkes out in Arizona. And so someone that I think knows the game and is kind of rising up the ranks, and now obviously back at his alma mater and has the ties to Shula too. So I think you make some good points, Wes. Like there's still going to be some carryover, especially in terms of blocking with what Sean Elliott's going to be doing with the offensive line. They've got a veteran group there, which I think will help them in the tight end group. I think more of the focus is on not that you need to forget about tight ends, right? They're critical in this offense.
Sure.
And I think that role for Ben Burris will be important. But I think all eyes are kind of on, Sean Elliott and what he can do for this group. And I think most people who are being reasonable about it understands, kind of where South Carolina's at. I mean, the next several weeks, they're going to play. I was just looking at some stop rate statistics that came out from Max Olson, and they're going to play 3 teams that are in the top 15, top 20 of that metric. Oklahoma, Alabama are both in there in terms of stop rate. And so when you think about those matchups against South Carolina's offensive line, a group that they've had some injuries, they're banged up, they've had struggles throughout the year. This is why the program is where it is, making a coaching change in the middle of the season. So he's got a lot in front of him. But if you're South Carolina, you've got a guy who has a long track record doing it here. And so there's some good fortune in there. I just think it's important to set the expectations realistically of what can be done. And, man, where my mind goes, you just got to help these guys execute a little bit better, and you got to help them eliminate the mistakes, the drive-killing mistakes, that they've been a part of a lot of times this season.
Well, and it's important to remember talking about position coaches. And, again, those guys are seeing over their individual units with practice every single day, but they're also the ones in charge of getting the right personnel on the field during the game. Again, Shula calls plays. It's up to those guys to make sure they have what they need out there at those individual position groups. And that is something that's going to be new for a guy like Ben Burris to take under coming up, on Saturday against a team like Oklahoma. And again, it's going to be new for everybody with Elliott shifting over to the offensive line. So again, these are the downsides of having to make these in-season coaching changes. But obviously, Beamer did it thinking that this kind of move would be for the best. And obviously, we'll hear from him coming up in about 90 minutes and hope to see some good results on all fronts offensively coming up this weekend now that you've shifted some things around.
Yeah, and I do think we're honestly at a time right now, a lot of people are frustrated with the overall just record and everything they've seen, certainly frustrated with the offense. And I think worth pointing out here, like I saw a little bit of pushback, like, oh, he was the pass game specialist before, and the offense hasn't been good. So the passing game hasn't been good. Why is he in this role? Ben has done a good job in the role that he was provided. Your pass game specialist obviously is going to be heavy involved, like helping out Shula and stuff like this, but he's not calling the plays. He was not, like, drawing up the playbook. He was not setting the game plan going into a game. So, like, everybody has their roles in assisting the offensive staff, and I'm sure he did his role well, but it is a far, 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 far vast reach to be like, let's blame Ben Burris for the passing game struggles. Sure. So apparently that does need to be said.
Yeah, fair enough.
I didn't know that it did, but apparently it does.
Yeah. I think Ben Burris taking over as tight ends coach now that Sean Elliott's moving over to the offensive line for the rest of the season. We'll check how we did on buy or sell over the weekend as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Tuesday on the game. All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you on your Tuesday. Looking back on the weekend, of course, we did buy or sell on Friday, and went into the weekend. Wes and I both tied with the lead at 18 points. Chris coming up strong with 15. We'll see how we did over the course of the game on Saturday. Starting off with question number 1, which was both offenses are at the bottom of the SEC in rush yards per game. Carolina was the only one that going into this game had over 100 yards in a single game, which was against Kentucky. The buy or sell was both teams will be under 100 rush yards in the game. Wes bought that. Chris, you and I both sold it.
And both ended up well above that.
Well above that. Carolina ran for 193 and LSU ran for 168.
Sack adjusted.
Sack adjusted. But still. Both anomalies considering where both teams have been prior to that game.
Yeah, we kind of said going in, like, both teams are going, all right, don't let this be the game that the other team gets the run game going, and
then both
of them failed in that regard, really. Yeah.
You never know. Question number 2. South Carolina had 2 non-offensive scores versus Kentucky, which brought them up to 6th on the season. Buy or sell question number 2 was they will score a non-offensive touchdown, either by defense or special teams, on Saturday. Chris, you were the only one to sell it and get that right.
Let's go.
God, we are stupid.
Now, you got a couple key takeaways. Just didn't turn into points. And you prevented points from happening because 2 of those came right there on the goal line, but unfortunately not able to take those to the house the other way.
I'm off to a good start, but still time for me to have missed some others.
I will say you did pretty well today on this one, all things considered.
All right.
Question number 3. South Carolina will be the first team to score a first quarter touchdown against LSU. We all bought that, and it happened.
Yes.
The Matthew Fuller touchdown at the end of the first quarter.
Barely. Wasn't that at the very end of the first quarter?
I think there was like 25 seconds left.
Yeah.
So we got in.
Close.
Got in right there at the end of
the
it.
buzzer.
But
counts, though.
It still counts.
Yes.
Still counts at the end of the day.
Golly.
And obviously that was the only time Carolina spent any semblance of time inside LSU's red zone was the final 20 yards of that run for Matthew Fuller. Which, by the way, nice little breakaway speed there. We've not seen Fuller go on that long run.
Well, I almost feel like Wes, like a half point on that one for pointing that out. The Kevin Harris.
Was that on this show or on the podcast?
It might have been both. It runs together.
Tyler's looking at us like he doesn't know what we're talking about. So I think it was the podcast.
Yeah, it was basically Wes saying that, like, this guy can pull away. Like, he doesn't look.
The thing is, you know how you just kick yourself? After I said that,
yeah,
I was like, I'm just going to post a random post on the board and be like, let me get ahead of this take. And my take was that if Matt Fuller ever has a big hole, we're going to be like, that guy's way faster than I thought he would be because we've been painting him into this box of, oh, he's a power guy.
Yeah.
But I had somebody point out to me during the bye week, like, yeah, you know, we're going to keep trying to get Fuller going. He's going to keep taking on a bigger role. And I mentioned, obviously he brings some power to the table. They were like, don't be surprised when you see how explosive he is too.
When he broke through the initial line of defense, made that one guy miss, I said, like, literally out loud, I said touchdown. And then I was like, oh, because then here comes LSU. They're talented, right, in the secondary. And it looks like, okay, they may catch him. And he pulled it away.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
There's definitely some Kevin Harris to the game.
Yes.
Now, what was the scout on him coming out of high school as far as his speed goes?
I feel like it wasn't really talked about as a big thing, positive or negative, just kind of.
The book on him in high school was just hugely productive. I mean, didn't he have it's like 20 yards a carry or something ridiculous in high school? I mean, he rushed for over 2,000 yards, I think, 2 or 3 seasons in high school. And you would look at him on tape, and he has a lot of longer runs, but it's like, it's in high school.
Yeah.
He's breaking tackles. Hey, that was the thing that stood out. It's like, this is a big kid, and he can break tackles, and he makes big plays in high school. But I don't know if it was as clear if it would translate. And so it does remind me a lot of Kevin Harris. Like, I remember when Kevin Harris came to South Carolina's camp, he has like an Army offer. and they loved everything they saw, size, production. But it's what is he going to run?
The speed was a question.
It was a question. And then he ran like 4.5, 4.55, which is good. It's not like incredible. But then you put him on the field and, you know, he gets in open space. He's got football speed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Matt Fuller has too.
Yeah.
Real quick, guys, let's take a moment. Rico Dowdle right now has turned into the best running back in the NFL the last 2 weeks.
Yes, he has.
And I got to say, man, we have done Rico wrong in terms of how we collectively look at his time at South Carolina. I know there were some injuries. I know that there was some not great football along the way. But I pulled up some of his highlights today just as like a refresher. Rico, easy to say now, when he was healthy, was a freaking stud at South Carolina. I think one of the most underrated players in recent South Carolina memory. And he clearly had something to prove against his former team this weekend. So happy for that guy, man. He is playing out of the world right now.
I think he has more than earned the starting job with the Panthers, even when Chuba Hubbard is back healthy again. Because how do you bench that guy?
You can't.
Can't
do it.
Buy or sell number 4. The over-under on the game was 44.5. You could either buy the over or sell the under. Wes, the only one to buy the over. And, of course, you only got to 30 total points.
I'm leaving.
It's not a great day for you.
Nah.
And we don't do this in buy or sell. And I'm not happy about it, to be clear.
Yep.
Y'all picked the Gamecocks win.
We did.
I picked an LSU win. Not happy
good
about
for you,
it.
Chris.
Yeah. Not
Good
happy.
for you.
I'm just saying. Was that a sweep for me? When I came in last, and Tyler was trying to be nice about it, but I was 3 points behind. So if I have a good day, I'm gonna gloat just a little bit.
Now,
just a little.
There's one more question from buy or sell.
Okay.
The TV broadcast will show the pick 6 / Kennard penalty from a year ago. And upon rewatch, I did not see it. Did anybody see this shown on TV? I did not see it.
No, I don't recall seeing it.
Did y'all take a bathroom break during the watch-along?
No, I kept my eyes focused on the TV the whole time. I don't believe it was shown at any point during the broadcast.
It wasn't.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy.
Chris said that was an easy buy.
Yeah.
I did.
You guys both bought it.
And you didn't.
I didn't.
Man.
You would have had the clean sweep, Chris.
I know. Close.
It is interesting that they didn't bring that up at any point.
I'm shocked. Honestly, I really thought that was an easy.
Considering everything that happened a year ago, not just with that, but that game and the environment and the stakes and obviously what it ended up meaning for both teams down the stretch, it kind of felt like, and maybe I missed him mentioning it a time or two during the broadcast, but I feel like the narrative of last year's game was largely absent, throughout the 4 quarters on Saturday.
They didn't have room to talk about it because they were talking about the velocity in which Nuss throws the football for the entire game.
Yeah.
I am not a complainer about the announcers, but holy cow. If I heard one more thing about the RPMs of the football he throws now compared to last year, and he's healthy this week, I mean, it was honestly like, you know how, I'm sure we've all done this. You ever get on air and you just realize, like, man, I've kind of run out of things to add to this conversation, so I just start repeating you just start repeating yourself.
Sure.
Got to fill some air somehow.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
It's like they were getting paid per mention or something.
Yeah, I do think it is noteworthy that they did not mention that about the game at all, because somebody, I have not fact-checked this, somebody on Twitter was saying that from the Auburn-Georgia game, on the replay, you know how they replay games, but they'll do the, due to time constraints, we're moving this ahead in the game or whatever?
Yeah.
They didn't show the controversial goal line touchdown, not touchdown. Is it a touchdown for Auburn? Is it a touchdown for Georgia? No, it's a touchdown for no one. That was not an important play in the game.
The touchdown for Auburn, too, by the way. The Kirby, did they show the Kirby timeout, not timeout?
I was going to tee you up for the officiating conversation to end the hour, so I was waiting on that.
Are you going conspiracy, Wes?
I'm just saying. If it's the SEC network.
Just asking questions.
Just saying.
You know a fun fact about that game? If they would have just taken the final 2 minutes before halftime which took 36 minutes of real time, that could have taken up that hour-long recap that they like to show about games just in those final 2 minutes alone, with how many reviews, how many stoppages, how many all this stuff. Officiating, that might have been the worst officiated game I've ever seen.
This is a great time for this take. So, you know, a lot of people will tell you, hey, transfer portal, NIL, it's ruining college football. And then you look at the numbers, the viewing numbers, and you go, y'all are complaining, but you're still watching.
Yeah.
Much like Chris and I always talk, you hate the transfer portal, you sure like to read about the transfer portal. I've seen the numbers.
Yeah.
College football has a problem. It is a quality of play problem. Whatever you could say about South Carolina in terms of sloppy play on Saturday, you could say the same stuff about LSU.
Yep.
Like it just was not a pleasing game to watch.
Nah.
If you were a South Carolina fan, an LSU fan, or just a football fan. So I feel like we've seen a lot of just ugly football in general.
Yep.
Like, I mean, because we have the newborn, I haven't been at the home games. I've watched more college football this year than I have in a long time. And sometimes I just want to shut my eyes. Like, it's bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, is you have all this roster churn. You have guys on 3 teams, guys who you don't have an NFL week to, like, learn everything new about a system, a scheme, all this stuff. Just have some bad ball around college football right now.
Well,
that's the concern, I think.
Well, and the bad officiating is not helping.
Well, and you have terrible officiating. Why didn't they queue up the package with all the bad calls from last year after the bad call from this year, where you expected Mason Love to have eyes in the back of his head?
Seems like it would have been good TV.
We'll let Chris rant about officiating because that's his favorite thing to do to wrap up the hour. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you, wrapping up the hour here on your Tuesday. Again, Beamer will talk at 1 o'clock today for his usual Tuesday press conference. And as I mentioned at the end of that last segment, obviously Auburn and Georgia garnered most of the headlines when it came to poor officiating in the SEC this weekend, but we're still trying to figure out what exactly happened on the penalty for what ended up being, or tried to be a fake punt for Carolina, where Mason Love got called for a false start, even though the official's not standing in front of him. And officiating the SEC is Chris Clark's favorite topic. So, Chris, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, it was, a huge play in the game. That's a tight game at that point. You converted, right? Would have been a first down. And, some things with penalties are judgment calls. It was pass interference. It wasn't pass interference. It was holding. It wasn't holding. This one even goes beyond that, though, because, literally, I mean, Shane Beamer explained it better than I can. Like, you could tell how frustrated he was in the post game. He had to kind of take a minute, and then mentioned on Sunday during his teleconference that he basically woke up John McDade. And it kind of was more, hey, I'm going to keep it between us, but basically what I thought was the case. In that basically it sounded to me like they blew the call and admitted it. Everybody is set for play, and you see this all the time in football. What happens? Well, once the ball's set for play, the official goes and stands behind the punter to get out of the way. What are you supposed to do? Look back at him when you never have to look back at him and confirm that it's set for play? So it's one of those, I mean, my question is, why do you not talk about it? Whoever threw the flag, get together and talk about it. You have that option. You don't have to go with that penalty. You could huddle up. One of the other many officials on the field could come together and say, wait a second, guys, what are we seeing here?
The problem is, though, the play never happened. They blew it dead.
They did blow it.
So even if you huddle up and say we're not going to assess the 5 yards, you're still at 4th and 5.
Yeah, you blew it dead.
You blew the opportunity for the surprise.
Yeah.
Yes. I was thinking, because the play happened, but it was blown dead.
It was blown dead. It did not happen. No play.
He still threw it, and had the play happened, would have been a first round, but it didn't count.
In the football world, it did not actually
didn't happen. Yeah.
But you're right. Typically, because what is it, Harbor, I think, that ran on last. So if you're going to allow the other team to substitute, you typically stand in front of the ball, or at least in front of the punter, to prevent the snap from taking place, saying, hey, we're going to give the team time to substitute because y'all did, which is standard. But he's standing near him, but then he takes a step to the side and behind him, and if I'm Mason Love, I'm like, all right,
that means ready
cool,
to play.
Let's go.
Same mechanic with the quarterback. You see that all, or really, the problem is they stand at the center, right? But because it's a punter, you're not going to run all the way into the center, and then you set. But the mechanic is typically you set it for play as you step away. So if you're stepping away behind the punter, there is an expectation, I feel like, that you're saying you may proceed. And Mason is going, all right. Like, I can't fault him because you already had to wait for Nick to go out there and get lined up. You've already lost a little bit of your element of surprise. So he's going, let's not remember the Ole Miss fake punt last year. Didn't Beamer say, hey, we had our look, but we didn't snap the ball
quick enough?
Wasn't that the one?
That was it.
So Mason is having some sense of urgency, which you, I think, probably need to on that. The thing I loved about that call is that, yes, it was a fake punt, but it also had some kind of element of, like, misdirection, some element of, like, all right, hold on, what are they doing? What are they doing? It wasn't just we're going to catch them off guard, because I think teams these days against South Carolina, you're not going to just catch them off guard. Like, they know, hey, they'll fake a punt anywhere on the field. So the fact that it had some kind of elements of, wait, we haven't seen this look before. What is this? Actually surprised LSU did not burn a timeout when they saw the look. And when I saw it was blown dead, to be honest, my initial reaction was, oh, LSU must have got a timeout. Not that you just blew the play dead because you're saying it wasn't spotted as ready for play.
Yeah, and then, I mean, to your point, yeah, y'all are right. I kind of forgot that they actually blown it dead, which you have to in that case. But, I mean, you just ruined you ruined everything, right? I mean, if you don't make that call and blow it dead, which you shouldn't have, then they run the play and South Carolina's still on the field. And who knows? Maybe they go down and score. Maybe they don't, but it was a first down. I mean, we saw the play as it unfolded, even though it had been blown dead. They converted a first down.
By the way, no comment from the league on any of the officiating blunders from the week.
They put out a highlight tape this week?
Not yet. Those usually come out later in the week, so we'll see. But yeah,
can't wait for that.
The SEC officiating at its finest, I guess. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show, myself, Bill Gutter, up next here on the Tuesday on the Game.